Hello friends, I am Dr. Kuldeep Mohadikar. In this video, I will be presenting my 20th chapter from my series Literary Pearls. The chapter deals with Addison's prose style, or we can say Addison as an essayist. So friends, in March 1711, Richard Steele published The Spectator, which was issued daily. The periodical ran until December 1712, obtained unprecedented popularity, and exercised a great influence upon the reading public of the period. In The Spectator, Addison rapidly became the dominating partner and wrote most of the essays. He wrote almost 274 essays out of the complete 555, means 555, and wholly shaped its policy after his separation from Richard Steele. Richard Steele wrote only 236 essays for this periodical. Addison's essays are nearly uniform length. Edward Albert quotes that, I quote, of almost unvarying excellence of style and of a wide diversity of subject. I unquote. They are a faithful reflection of the life of the times. Viewed with an aloof and dispassionate observation, Addison set out to be a mild critic of the morals of the age, and most of his essays deal with topical subjects like fashions, headdress, practical jokes, polite conversation. His aim was to ensure, I quote, those vices which are too trivial for the chastisement of the law and too fantastical for the cognizance of the pulpit. Even deeper and more serious themes were handled in a popular fashion: immorality, jealousy, prayer, death, and drunkenness, etc. Politics was touched, but only sparingly. I unquote. In all things, Addison advocated moderation, tolerance, and wrote against all excess. The delightful essays which flowed from Addison's pen are significant in many ways. First, they are the best pictures we possess of the new social life of England with its many new interests. Secondly, they advance the art of literary criticism to a much higher stage than it had ever before reached. Thirdly, in Will Wimble, the poor relation, Sir Andrew Freeport, the merchant, Will Honeycomb, the fop, and Sir Roger, the country gentleman, they gave us characters that live forever as part of the great immortals of literature. Lastly, Addison and Steele not only introduced the modern essay, but in such characters as have been referred to above, they heralded the dawn of the modern novel. Of all his essays, the best known and loved are those which introduce us to Sir Roger de Coverley, the genial dictator of life and manners in the quiet English countryside. It is certain that it was Steele who first hit on the idea of Roger de Coverley, an imaginary, egocentric old country squire who is supposed to be a member of the Spectator Club in London. Around Sir Roger are grouped of number of contrasted characters, all members of the same club. I quote, Addison seized upon the idea of the club, gave it life, interest, and adventure, cast over it the charm of his pleasant humor, and finished up by making the night die with affecting deliberation and decorum. I unquote. In literature, the Coverley papers have an epoch-making significance. Edward Albert puts it, I quote, Addison had pinned the Coverley papers together with a stronger plot. If instead of only referring to the widow who had stolen the knight's affections, he had introduced a definite love theme. If he had introduced some important female characters, we should have had the first regular novel in our tongue. As it is, this essay series brings up within a measurable distance of the genuine 18th century novel. I unquote. Addison's style has often been deservedly praised. I quote, it is the very perfection of the middle style, never slip-slop or obscure or unmelodious. He has an infallible instinct for the proper word and the infallible ear for a subdued and graceful rhythm. His prose moves with a demure and pleasing grace in harmony with his object and with himself. Addison's services to English language and literature cannot be overemphasized. He was a great reformer not only of the English tongue but also of the English text. Addison established the periodical essay as one of the most important forms of modern literature. Addison is the painter of English life in the early 18th century. The very plan of the Spectator Club is intended to present to the readers a cross section of English society. Every member of the club is a representative of a profession or trade or class of society. Thus, Sir Roger, a typical country squire of the old feudal order, represents country life. The Templar represents the legal profession, art and learning. Captain Sentry, the military. Sir Andrew Freeport, the trade and commercial interest. Will Honeycomb, a lady killer, the life of the men about town. The spectator himself is an impartial observer of men and manners, and he sees and records practically every aspect of life of the times. It is chiefly through the character of Sir Roger de Coverley that country life and country manners have been portrayed. In the country, the old ideas of feudalism still persist. Kindly and gentle, and Sir Roger is a true feudal lord who lives in the midst of his tenants and retainers. They as their friend and benefactor, look him upon, and he considers himself responsible for their welfare. Through such papers as Sir Roger at Church, Sir Roger at Home, a hunting expedition, Mall White, every aspect of country life has been vividly presented. There are other persons which vividly bring out the increasing hostility between landed gentry and the moneyed classes in the town, fast rising into prominence. Even the younger sons of country families are no longer apprenticed as before to petty merchants and waste their whole life like Will Wimble in doing odd jobs for their neighbors and their wives. Owing to the difficulty of communication, the country is isolated from the town, and as a result, the people are superstitious and backward. Many old ways of thinking still survive. Fashions penetrate with great slowness, and party strife is more fierce than in the town. Equally valuable light is shed by Coverley papers on city life. The life of the upper classes is hopelessly artificial and frivolous. Numerous French fashions and French fopperies prevails. The papers dealing with the life of the fair sex are among the best in the whole collection, and they reveal a degraded and artificial ideal of womanhood. Woman is either the plaything for men, a mere toy, or an object of his pleasure. Flattering compliments are paid to her, which would be an insult even to the understanding of a child. The ideal of virtue and honor is mocked at, and virtue is simply regarded as a sign of female peevishness. As important aspect of London life of the times is the mushroom growth of coffee houses and their immense popularity. Whoever claimed to intellectual taste or wanted to be in fashion frequented some or the other of these coffee houses. Every kind of subject, from current gossip to art and literature, was discussed there, and in this way they served as important centers for the formation of public opinion. In the Coverley papers too, we get quite a few references to this coffee house and to the type of recent university questions with complete answers people who frequented them. Thus, in the very first paper, we are told that Mr. Spectator is a frequenter of many coffee houses as Wheels, Childs, and Gratian, etc. These are all the names of coffee houses existed at that time. It is from there that he gathers news and views on different subjects. Party strife, both religious and political, was tearing the nation into pieces. The Puritan regarded every man of fashion as immoral, while the gallant and upper classes in general regarded the devout as hypocrites. The country was sharply divided between the Whigs and Tories, and political discussions tended to be violent and passionate. The Spectator tells us he intends to observe strict neutrality between the Whigs and Tories, and that he has never supported any party with any violence. In another paper, we are told that fierce party strife, I quote, makes the people greater strangers and more averse to one another, that if they were actually two different nations, I unquote. The essay on party patches exposes the stupid extent to which people possessed with the party spirit could go. Such is Addison's portrait of early 18th century life. It is remarkable for its realism and thoroughness, so much so that Addison has been called, I quote, the social chronicle of the times, I unquote. However, it is twisted in three important aspects. First, Addison's purpose was reformative, and so naturally there is frequent exaggeration and accentuation. Secondly, his purpose was to deal with the minor vices and frivolities, such offences as do not come within the purview of law or religion, and so the ugly side of the 18th century life has been left out. We don't get any account of its underworld, of its crime and vice, and if of the immorality and degeneracy of the upper classes. Consequently, there are no characters from low life, only genteel life has been presented. Thirdly, he plays upon the surface of life and gives us no peep into the hidden recesses of a female mind and heart. The credit for creating and perfecting an English prose as an instrument for the expression of social thought must go to Addison. He was a journalist, he had to speak to the people, and so he evolved a style suitable for mass communication. Addison is the creator of the middle style, the style which expresses the genius and character of the nation. His style is not individual, it is social. Addison's prose has been highly praised by one critic after another. Machiavelli calls him, I quote, the master of pure English eloquence, I unquote. And Dr. Johnson says, I quote, whoever wishes to attain an English style, familiar but not coarse, elegant but not ostentatious, must give his days and nights to the volumes of Addison, I unquote. Dr. Johnson thus emphasized the different elements in Addison's prose. It has the ease and genial intimacy of conversation so necessary for a journalist. It has a personal note and easy familiarity of a lamb or Hazlitt, but it is singularly free from all that is vulgar, colloquial, or slang. It is familiar but not coarse. It is refined, polished, elegant, and finely chiseled, but it is not Latinized, involved, and heavily ornamented like the prose of his predecessors. It steers a middle course between the two extremes and is perfectly suited as a medium of social communication. Addison's style is delight, direct, simple, and clear virtues which his predecessors lacked despite their superior eloquence and higher flights. Addison was a painstaking writer who revised and re-revised what he wrote till his style acquired a rare dignity and refinement. Addison was himself a cultured gentleman, and in this way he imparted a rare polish to his compositions as well. He does not write anything shabby or slipshod. The balance, the rhythm, and the lucidity of his sentences are remarkable. Every word is carefully chosen with reference both to its sense and its sound. It is the very perfection of good breeding and is in contrast with the style of Steele, who wrote hurriedly and carelessly. Another quality of Addison's style is its flexibility. He had the wonderful gift of suiting manner to his matter. When he is dealing with serious and reflective subjects, his style also becomes serious and weighty. The style grows light and airy to convey the mood of gentle banter in such essays as Party Patches. Thus, this capacity to modulate the style to the subject is the index to a rare command over language. Clearness, writes J.H. Fowler, I quote, was a virtue which Addison esteemed highly and which his own writing excels, I unquote. It is this clearness which makes Addison a safe model for the learner, any learner. He says he has to say clearly and unambiguously even when he writes a long sentence. He is never ambiguous he is never ambiguously involved. There is no ambiguity, no diffusiveness. It is invariably carefully and faultlessly constructed. Though Addison's style is highly polished and refined, it is certainly unornamented. However, we cannot agree with the verdict of Dr. Johnson. I quote, "The rogue never hazards a metaphor," I unquote. As Fowler points out, Addison was fully alive to the beauty of metaphor, but he uses imagery only sparingly, and that too as a humorous device and not merely as an ornament. Thus, we are humorously told that the Whigs and Tories, I quote, "engage when they meet as naturally as the elephants and the rhinoceros," I unquote. He uses analogy and anecdote also in the same humorous manner. At other times, he uses concrete examples to vivify abstract thought. Thus, the example of Moll White has been used to reveal the folly of superstition regarding witches, and the absurdity of both the shame and fear of poverty has similarly been brought out by the use of concrete examples. Effective use of anecdote, analogies, etc. not only communicate this meaning but also add to the charm of essays. Quotations both from English and classical writers too are similarly used to illustrate his meanings and brings them home to his readers. Every Spectator paper is adorned with a classical motto at the top. Another favorite stylistic device of Addison is irony. The use of indirect language or the simulated adoption of another's point of view is the most potent instrument of Addison's satire. His use of irony is best seen in papers which deal with feminine fashions and frivolities. The very first sentence of the paper in which Mr. Spectator gives an account of himself is in the ironical vein. The charge of mediocrity has often been brought against Addison's prose. Hugh Walker says that Addison is a safe guide for a learner only because he is incapable of the highest flights of eloquence. There is no doubt some truth in such criticism, but his significance in the history of English prose cannot be overemphasized. He saved it from the excesses of his predecessors and imparted to its neatness, precision, and lucidity. He is without doubt one of the greater makers of English prose style. So that's what's all about from my side on Addison's prose style and Addison as an essayist. Thanks, friends.